Welcome, Husker fans, to Big Red Radio, the Husker Talk Show. I am your host, Caleb Jenneret, and with me is my co-host, Zach Jenneret. Zach, how you doing?
Doing good. It's game week again. Getting a little excited. It's homecoming week, and announcement here. Just me this time. I will be back in Lincoln this Saturday. Not at the game, but I will be at the rail yard in Lincoln, down there. So come hit me up and do some Nebraska talking.
There you go. So before we start, comment down below what you think Mickey Joseph has to do in order to get the head coaching job at the end of the year. Obviously, there's a lot of head coaching jobs. There's been a lot of talk about who the next coach is going to be. Comment down below what you think Mickey Joseph has to do if he wants that job. So before we get into it, shout out all the socials: Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. We've been putting out a lot of stuff, a lot of conversation with you guys. And I love that. Love conversation with you guys. We want to hear what you guys have to say, even though some of it's not always the nicest stuff. Still good to hear what you guys have to say, and it only makes us better. So there you go. So yeah, before we start, Zach, you got anything else?
I don't.
Okay, so looking at the schedule, I think the first thing, I have two things that Mickey Joseph has to do. He has to make a bowl game, and he has to win one of the last four games. So the last four games are Minnesota, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Iowa. I think he has to win one of those games. If you go out and you beat Indiana, you beat Rutgers, you beat Purdue, you beat Illinois, but then you lose to Minnesota, Michigan, Wisconsin, Iowa, I don't think there's any real reason for you to stick around at all. So as we go through the schedule, actually, you start with one of yours first, and then we might go through the schedule.
Yeah, I think the same thing. But I think that not only do you have to win one of those last four games, none of those last four games can end up like Oklahoma. None of them. You cannot get beat 50-4, 50 or 50-7, let's say, against any of those teams out there at all.
Yeah, I agree. You can't get embarrassed. I think Oklahoma, there's a little bit of an excuse. The coach was fired the same week. Probably wasn't a whole lot of organization, and Nebraska looked good through the first 5 minutes. So,
yeah. The only thing I would critique Mickey Joseph on in that Oklahoma week is that, so he changed I don't know if anyone else caught on to this, but he changed the practice schedule so that Sunday is on and Monday is off, which I like. That way, film on Sunday is much more easy to dissect. A light practice on Sunday to go over that film is much more beneficial. The problem is he didn't kick that in until Monday, the week of Oklahoma, and they also took Sunday off because that's the day Scott Frost got fired. And so they only had Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then, day before on Friday to prepare for a team like Oklahoma. And so,
yeah, no,
that's my only critique, is that I feel like he should have maybe waited till the next week to do that.
Yeah, definitely wasn't preparing the team for the task ahead best way possible. But I mean, you can't really put that on him. It was just it was a weird week, and yeah, it was just didn't work out, obviously. But we've already talked about that. We've already talked about the Oklahoma game a little bit. So moving on to Indiana, I think Indiana is a winnable game at home. Nebraska is favored right now. Indiana had a very close game with Western Kentucky. Did they end up winning or losing that game? Yeah, they did end up beating Western Kentucky 33-30 in overtime. Obviously, last week got beat by 21 to a good Cincinnati team. So yeah, I think Nebraska is definitely the more talented team, but there's a lot of organizational issues, and we'll get more into like the actual game prediction and breakdown on Thursday. But I think Indiana is a winnable game, and that'll take us to 2-3. I think Rutgers is winnable. We just saw Rutgers get killed by Iowa, which is always a good sight, especially when Iowa has 0 offense. So that takes us to 3-3. Purdue, I think, is winnable. It's going to be the toughest game we have. Obviously, taking in Indiana and Rutgers, Purdue is going to be tougher than those teams, is what I'm saying. But Purdue hasn't necessarily looked amazing. They looked good week 1 against Penn State, but that's just guessing that Penn State's really good, which we haven't really been proven. They just barely beat Florida Atlantic. They lost to Syracuse. Other than that, I mean, it's been the Penn State loss and then destroying Indiana State. So not really a huge. I think we're going to see who Purdue is this week as they face off with, or next week. Wait, is it this week? This week. Yeah, they face Minnesota this week. And Minnesota's been rolling. So I think that's winnable, but I'm probably going to say a loss there. So if it's a loss there, that leaves us 1, 2. Illinois is a winnable game. 3. So 3 wins and 1 loss takes us to 3-4. We would have to win 2 out of the last 4 to make a bowl game. I'm just trying to put it in perspective on what Mickey would have to do. It's up there. It's going to be pretty tough for Mickey to make that bowl game and win one of those last 4, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, winning those last 4, I want to dive in more depth. Minnesota.
Well, let's start with the first.
Making a bowl game.
No, the first 4 games. Let's go through each game.
Okay, going through each game. Indiana. I think it's a winnable game.
So yes, absolutely. Indiana is a winnable game. Nebraska is favored in this game. ESPN puts them at 60.6% chance to win. They are a 5.5 point favorite now. Started out as a 3.5 point favorite, so it looks like the overall we have a better offense than the defenses look to be terrible, and I mean overall that's about it as far as that goes with Indiana. I think this is definitely a winnable game. This team, like you said, is not something special. And I think you have to win this game as far as these next 4 games goes. This may be the most important game of the season. In all honesty, this may be
every game.
Every game at this point. At this point in the season, this may be the most important game of the season. Because if you lose this game, you are going to most likely drop the next game.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you're losing those 2 games,
you're probably losing to Purdue.
Good luck beating Purdue. And now we're 1-6.
Yeah. Now the bowl game. Now there's no chance.
Exactly.
Mickey's pretty much out of the door. Even though, I guess we can talk about it a little bit. What do you think about the commitment to Mickey Joseph? Because my thoughts on it are, I like it in the fact that recruits know that the guy that's recruiting them, and Mickey Joseph is one of the best recruiters in the nation. I mean, that's been proven.
Yeah, I mean, he is.
But I think it'll be tough to tell a coach, like, you can bring in your whole staff, except you need to find a place for this guy. You know, like when a coach gets hired, they want to keep their guys and they want to bring their guys. They don't want to have to keep somebody. You know, it's worked out in the past. I was watching Corn Crazed earlier this morning, and he said that it's worked, as Urban Meyer, when he went to Utah, kept Kyle Whittingham on the staff, And now Kyle Whittingham, extremely successful head coach at Utah, probably not going to leave. So that's something to consider. I think that Mickey Joseph has always been one of the more respected guys in the nation in terms of position coaches. I think that's why he was so highly recruited to come to Nebraska as a wide receivers coach. Also, he has the connections to Nebraska, connections to the South, everything like that. But it is tough. It is tough. And I guess it depends on if, because you can't, I guess a new coach can't always get his guys to all come. So there's going to be an opening. I just hope that it's with what Mickey wants to do. And I don't think it's going to be an OC. I don't think Mickey gets an OC job. I don't think Mickey gets, I think he just gets another wide receiver coach job or like a special teams job, something like that. Because that's what he's familiar with. And I don't think a new coach is going to come in with an OC already decided, in my opinion. And that's just what I think.
No, yeah,
But
I mean, that makes sense. And honestly, I mean, I don't know. I get the recruiting standpoint by it, but with the coaches that are in talks, or in speculation, I should say, with Nebraska, guys like, Aranda, Bill O'Brien, Mark Stoops, Leopold, like, sure, you're not going to have Mickey's recruiting abilities, but like, there's going to be plenty of guys that want to come play for those coaches. Plenty of guys that want to come play for those coaches. So,
yeah, but I also think Trev is kind of just like tipping his hat to Mickey for taking on this challenge after
yes, that's
everything
true.
happened, and he's letting him.
And
you have a
here's
spot
my
here.
thought behind it, right? So there's one coach that I feel like would absolutely, without a doubt, keep Mickey out of respect as well, and that's Bill O'Brien, because he's been there, right? He took on one of the hardest scenarios to take on, so he knows what Mickey's doing right now. He knows that what Mickey did is hard, and so I think maybe he even respects that and is like, hey, I know what you did because I did it, and I'll keep you on for that.
Yeah, and also Dave Aranda worked with Mickey at LSU, worked with Mickey, worked with Bill Bush. So maybe that's another thing. Maybe he keeps Mickey on as a receivers coach then.
Yeah.
So I think there's definitely coaches out there that would keep him. And I don't know what the other coaches' thoughts are. They have their own teams right now, so they're probably not really worrying about it. But I think it could possibly be a negative with coming to Nebraska, is you have to keep this guy no matter what, which whatever you want to say, I mean, could be a negative, could be a positive. I think Mickey's great. I love Mickey. I love what he's done in the press conference. I know he loves Nebraska. It seems like he wants to be here, especially already committed to next year, no matter if it's head coach or not. So I think he loves Nebraska, and I think he wants what's best for Nebraska. It's just I'm worried about what other coaches are going to think. But we can move on to Rutgers, because I think we both agree Indiana's a winnable game and it's a must-win game for Mickey.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
Yeah.
Rutgers, I think Rutgers is another winnable game, very winnable game. It's on a Friday. It's a night game. It's in New Jersey, so that's a little bit tougher. But I don't think Rutgers is very talented. I think they're well coached, but I don't think they're as talented as Nebraska for sure. They might be more motivated. I don't know. It depends. If Nebraska loses to Indiana, I wouldn't look at any of the rest of the games as a should wins, because after that, it's like, what are you going to do? Like, if you lose to Indiana, you're not beating Purdue. You're not winning any of the last 4 games. That's for sure. And Rutgers just Iowa just stomped Rutgers, and Iowa's looked like garbage, really, for most of the season. So
aside from their defense, of course.
Right. Their defense is always good. But their offense might as well not even be on the field at some point. So, and they put up over 30 points on Rutgers, I think.
27.
But yeah, almost 30, but still
14 of that ended up being defensive.
Still,
points.
I mean, still, like, yeah, Rutgers gives the ball away to Iowa. Iowa's really good at taking the ball away, to be fair, but they also, 27 points to a Iowa team that's averaging probably less than 20 on the year. Not a good look. So I think Rutgers is definitely.
I believe going in, they were averaging less than 10 points a game.
I don't know, because they put a lot of points up on Nevada.
They put up 27 or 24 on Nevada.
Yeah, and Nevada's not good either. So
Yeah.
that just shows you. I mean, I think these next two games are very, very winnable games. And then moving on to
Yeah,
Purdue,
for
that one
sure.
is. Yeah, go ahead.
But what I find kind of weird is that they actually have Rutgers favored this game, which seems a little odd to me. I get, it's in New Jersey. Rutgers is 3-1. We're 1-3 right now, but you just go ahead and take our, just our players, let alone. So Casey Thompson's our leading passer with 995 yards and 5 touchdowns. Their quarterback has 560 yards and 3 touchdowns. Rushing wise, Anthony Grant has 464 yards and 5 touchdowns. Their running back has 150 and 2 touchdowns, right? So
Yeah, which you can't take everything away from stats, but those are pretty blown away. Just
yeah.
so
Now, Rutgers is said to have a pretty solid defense,
mhm.
but I don't
think it's anything close to what we've seen so far with Oklahoma.
I think that's a winnable game as well. Now, next up after that would be Illinois.
No, it'd be Purdue.
Purdue.
in West Lafayette.
Yes.
Tough one. It's tough.
This is a tough one.
I think it's winnable.
They actually currently have Purdue with an 82% chance to win this game. That seems a little ridiculous to me, honestly.
Well, I mean, dude, you can't look at the schedule of Nebraska. Nebraska's lost to Georgia Southern, blown out of the water by an Oklahoma team that just got beat by K-State. And then lost week 1 to Northwestern, who hasn't won a game since. So I think it's plenty fair to have Purdue heavily favored in this game. Maybe not by a lot of points, but statistically and percentage wise, I think it is fair to have Purdue that high.
Yeah. Okay. That's fair. And this is one that I said these next 4 games, as in Indiana, Rutgers, Purdue, Illinois, are all winnable, but I feel like we'll drop one.
Mm-hmm.
This might be the one.
Yeah, I think Purdue's probably the one. Nebraska always does play well against Purdue. It's always a close game, no matter how good and how talented Purdue is. But yeah, it just looks like Aiden O'Connell is going to sling that ball around like crazy. And Nebraska's been allowing quarterbacks to just sling it around like crazy. So not looking forward to the Purdue game. Well, I mean, I'm looking forward to every game. I'm going to watch every game and I'm going to enjoy myself as long as I can. But I think this is probably the one we drop. And then Illinois is not as talented as a roster. I'll tell you that for sure.
No.
But
Illinois right now in their last 5. So they started out, they beat Wyoming pretty handily, then they lost to Indiana, beat Virginia, and then beat Chattanooga. And so really the only person they played is Indiana, and they lost.
Right. It was a close game. So I think how Nebraska plays this weekend is going to tell a lot on what we can expect from this Illinois game. But you can't always do head-to-head like that. It doesn't always work out that way. And Nebraska has struggled with Illinois, especially these past few years. I think Illinois has won 2 out of the last 3 games. So, yeah.
But I feel like Mickey has to win this game. He's got to win this game to keep the. He has to win Indiana, Rutgers, and Illinois. Those are must wins if you want to be here next year.
If you want a chance, I think if he wins those 3, he still has to do more.
No, yes, but you have to win those 3 if you want.
Yeah, you drop one of those, there's no shot. Yeah. So that would put us at, let's say we beat Indiana, beat Rutgers, lose to Purdue, beat Illinois. That's 3-1 in those games, putting us at 4-4. Going in hosting Minnesota, hosting Minnesota, who's looked really good. Minnesota's looked really good. They're kind of on that same Northwestern track where they're just good every other year, like really good every other year and just kind of solid the other years. So this is one of those years where they look good. I think it's going to show a lot what they can do against Purdue. They play Purdue. And that's going to tell a lot because Purdue's a decent team at least. At least the worst they are is decent. And if Minnesota just completely blows them out of the water, I don't think there's a chance for Nebraska to beat Minnesota, especially since Minnesota's kind of dominated Nebraska for the last few years. Last year was just an ugly game. Even though it was a one score, it felt like Minnesota completely dominated that game. Michigan, that's an L. I don't think there's any shot we beat Michigan. Michigan looks so much better than they did last year. Maybe not so much better than they did last year, but they look better than they did last year. And last year they made the college football playoff. So I think Michigan is an L, 100%. Let's say,
Let's
say
Minnesota's in the big house.
Yeah, in Ann Arbor. I just think a win.
Team's putting up 50 points a game.
Right, a win against Michigan will be keeping it not close, because I don't think we keep it close even. I think competitive. 2-score game, I would be okay with. I would be happy with a 2-score game. Like a 17-point game even. That's a 3-score game, but I would still be happy with that. I think you have to beat Wisconsin and Iowa. So let's say we're 4-6, because I'm saying right now Minnesota's probably a loss, and Michigan's definitely a loss. So that puts us at 4-6 with just our quick look through. And then Wisconsin hasn't looked good. Wisconsin got blown out of the water last week by Ohio State, which, yes, it's still Ohio State, but they also got beat by
Washington State.
Washington State doesn't look bad, but still, I mean, it's not the same Wisconsin team that we're used to seeing. And then, Iowa sucks. So maybe Iowa doesn't suck, but I think Nebraska matches up very well against Iowa, and it's always going to be a very close game. So as long as we keep it close with Iowa, I think we have a good chance to win that game. So I think what Mickey has to do in these next games, he has to beat Indiana, Rutgers, Illinois, and he has to win 2 out of the last 4 games. I don't think he's beating Michigan, so he has to win. He has to beat Iowa, and he has to beat either Minnesota or Wisconsin. And I think that's fair to say, don't you?
Yeah, I think that's what you have to do. You have to show that this week is huge for him, because I'm not saying he's had enough time to turn this team around, but he's had time to do what he wants to do. He's had 2 weeks now to prepare to do exactly what he wants to do. They have to look sharp versus Indiana. The defense has to look sharp. The offense has to look on cue. Can't be a whole lot of mistake. Like, you better look really, really good against Indiana if you want these Husker fans to buy in and keep you around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and another thing at stake is the sellout streak. I have no doubt that this game is going to be a sellout. I don't know if it's already sold out. Okay, so by the time that you are watching this, we believe it is sold out. We cannot confirm, but we do believe it is sold out. But if the game is lost, our next home game is Illinois. Who knows? Who knows if that game sells out? So yeah, it's in grave danger though, because if Indiana wins.
But here's the thing: if it's Friday, they actually said that Oklahoma, I believe, there was roughly a little over 1,000. Oh, never mind. There was a little over 1,000 tickets left yesterday.
But I think it's Indiana is
it's sold out.
Yep, sold out.
The thing is, though, if it gets close to not being sold out, donors will buy up empty seats.
Yeah, just to keep the streak alive. But I don't know if you can do that. Like, I don't even know if you can convince donors to do it if there's thousands and thousands of seats not being bought.
That's true.
I do think it's in danger, and I think it's in grave danger if Nebraska drops this game to Indiana. I think if Nebraska wins, I have no doubt that Illinois will sell out, just because people will be like, yeah, we're winning now. Depending on what happens with Rutgers and Purdue, but this was kind of an all over the place video, just because there wasn't a whole lot to talk about today. So in conclusion, I think what Mickey has to do is he has to make a bowl game. He has to beat Indiana, Rutgers, and Illinois. He has to beat Minnesota or Wisconsin, and then he has to beat Iowa. If he can somehow pull out Michigan, then he can lose to one of those teams. But it's going to take a lot. It's going to take a lot for Mickey. And for those people that are saying, let's just let Mickey do his thing. Obviously, we want to let Mickey do his thing. We want to win every single game the rest of the year, but you have to think realistically. And realistically, most likely, there's going to be a new head coach at the end of the year. So,
yes, I
that's just
mean,
what you have to expect at this point.
as much as I also, like Mickey Joseph and I like what he's doing for the program, he's very well spoken on press conferences. I think he has the right ideas and the right mission. I don't think he is quite ready and prepared to take on a role this big to do what the fans want, someone to come in here and do. I don't think he can do that. I think he'd be a very good, recruiting coordinator kind of guy at the wide receiver coach position. And other than that, I don't see him, being the head coach that's going to take us back to the glory days that we want.
Yeah. And maybe
then,
it's unrealistic for us to think that anybody can do that, but.
And then I think what'll really help, I mean, this is the first head coach since like the 60s that hasn't had a tie to Tom Oswald.
Yeah.
Unless, however, we bring in like, Eric Crouch or something.
Right.
Which
probably not though. Probably not. I think.
Yeah, but I think
the options. I think the options have already been named. I don't think there's just some random, unless something crazy happens in the rest of the year. I don't think there's some random coach that's just going to show up and be like, "Yeah, I'm the new head coach." I think out of the 20 guys that we named in the tier list, it's probably a very good chance that one of those guys is the next head coach, because it's the writing's on the wall, and these guys just what the coaching position at Nebraska means and what these guys have proven. I think people can expect it to be one of those guys. Now, if somebody comes out of nowhere and wins a ton of games and I don't know, something like that, I don't know. Or if more people start saying, I don't want the job, obviously more names are going to start coming up. Some NFL guys maybe get fired. I don't know. Something might happen. But I think we pretty much know that like 20 to 30 guys who might be the next coach. So
what do we have to do to win the West?
Win the West, we would have to get really lucky. I'll say that.
Not crazy.
Okay. Let's not be crazy here. Let's be realistic.
We really wouldn't have to get that crazy.
Okay. Let's be realistic. We are not winning the West.
I'm not saying it's gonna happen.
You would have
to. I don't think it have to be.
You would have to beat Minnesota. You would have to win every single game except for Michigan, and then you would have to hope that Minnesota loses some other games since they're already 4-0. Iowa's already 3-1. Illinois is 3-1. Purdue's 2-2. Like Nebraska is last right now, so the chances are very slim.
Yeah, I get that, but if you think about it, right? Minnesota still has to play. Where's their schedule? Minnesota doesn't have an easy schedule, that's for sure. Because they still have to play. They have. Well, I guess they do have a decent easy schedule. They have to play Penn State. They're probably going to lose to Penn State, in my opinion. Penn State's pretty good, I would think, especially since it's like Penn State's whiteout game.
I'll just say we'll do a deeper dive on this because I don't think having this discussion right now really does anything. Like if we don't beat Indiana, there's not a chance we win the Big Ten West. So I think if the ball starts rolling, if we get through Indiana, we get through Rutgers, we get through Purdue somehow, we get through Illinois, then yes, I think there's probably a conversation. But as of right now, there's a close to 0% chance Nebraska's winning the Big Ten West. So in conclusion, Mickey Joseph has to make a bowl game, has to beat either Minnesota or Wisconsin and Iowa. I think that's the conclusion that we came to in this video. But comment down below what you think he has to do. Follow all the socials. They're all going to be on the screen once again. Zach, you got anything else before we close this out?
Nope. Just cheer on Nebraska this weekend.
Yeah,
Homecoming, big week.
Go see Zach at the
Rail
yard and ask him any questions you want, because he'll answer them, or at least try to. So yeah, we'll see you guys on Thursday for the preview to the Indiana game. But until then, or Friday, we'll record it Thursday. It'll come out Friday. But until then, see you guys later. Go Big Red.